personal life or any kind of massive dramas, but I ended up having what was, without a doubt, a full mental breakdown. Knock-on effect from having an accident like that is you start second guessing everything, you start worrying about, and I started having quite bad anxiety attacks and stuff like that. For some time I was waking up every day and thinking, today is the day that I'm going to own my own life.
Hello everybody and welcome to the latest episode of the podcast. And on this episode of the podcast I sit down and speak to my friend James. James actually drove up from Leamington Spa to come and give me a lift to paint the studio as you see now, so this is all his fine work. But James came on and we had a quick chat. He was very echoey because we didn't have any carpet down and we were in the middle of building the studio. And also we had a bit of problem with the microphones. One of the microphones died and I didn't realise, and that's what you might hear a bit of clicking and a bit of muffled talking through it, so I apologise for that. But it was still a very, very good episode. James comes on and he talks about his experience with mental health and his journey with it up to date and how he looks after himself and what he does. He does speak about suicide in it, so this is a bit of a trigger warning for you. But if you are having suicidal thoughts and you do need some help and support with that, please reach out. There are numbers in the description below that you can call 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Remember, you are never ever alone, and no matter how big or how dark the problem is, it always gets better. So I hope you enjoy the episode. Let us know what you think of it, and I'll speak to you all very soon. Hello everybody and welcome to an echoey studio, but as you can see there's been more progress made, and today that really couldn't be possible without James. James has come up from Leamington Spa. Now I'm usually down in Leamington Spa doing stuff at A&E Studios, using their facilities, but he's come up to help out with this and I'm very, very grateful. But James, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having me.
No worries, thanks for coming up today. Like I say, it's usually the other way around. I'm usually going down there instead of coming up here.
Unfortunately, you could bring the studio with you. So.
Can you just paint this for us and throw it in the back of the van and take it up? But no, you reached out, you said that if I need any help, and I asked if you could help us with this, and you were like, yeah, absolutely, let's do it. So I really appreciate that.
This bank holiday weekend.
I know, yeah.
4 coats in.
4 coats in before we run out of time. We best get an episode recorded. So we just spent 20 minutes trying to get it to work. We were going to do it as we were working, but I can't get the camera angles to work. So we've just gone for this setup. But hopefully this is the last episode we record where it's mid-flow of being built, and it should be up and running, fully operational, hopefully in the next couple of weeks. But we'll get there in the end. But James, do you want to just give us a bit of a background about you?
Yeah, so my name is James Reeve. I'm the owner and director of Royal Spa Decoration in Leamington Spa. My kind of crossover has come from my own experiences with mental health after I suffered a bad accident at work, which has kind of led me into this. It's quite exciting new kind of pursuit of trying to raise awareness and trying to destigmatise issues around mental health. I recently became an ambassador for Coventry and Warwickshire Mind, and I'm just trying to do what I can to, like I said, raise awareness and make other people see that it's not only acceptable, but it's vital that we start having these conversations and discussing how we feel, which I know is a phrase that's used a lot, but it is important. Jokes aside, it is important, and I'm here today to try to support you, and hopefully we can get the studio up and running, and this will be a safe space for people to come and discuss, their own problems. So
absolutely. Well, I appreciate all the amazing work you do, not only with me here today, but all the stuff you've been up to, because you've been busy lately, haven't you? You managed to work your way onto BBC Breakfast.
I did, and like I said earlier to yourself, it's not something that I've been kind of doing in pursuit of my own goals or financially. It's just something that, like I said, I do feel passionate about, and it's something that I did set out to do for a while. I think I did kind of message quite a few people a while ago, and I really set my mind to it, just kind of saying, if you do kind of need me for anything or anything like that. But I do appreciate it as well. People probably are sitting at the other end of the computer thinking, who's this guy? He's well too keen. But yeah, I mean, to be fair, when I set out to kind of do my part, so to speak, a few months ago, I didn't honestly think that I'd be kind of sat here now or have kind of done some of the things that I have done already, which I am obviously very grateful for. That being said, it is kind of only just really the start of that journey, and I think we've kind of got Instagram to thank for our meeting, which obviously is a great place for people to kind of network with like-minded people. So yeah, everything happens for a reason, as we said.
Yeah, 100%. I think it really happens, and sometimes you don't realise when you're going through whatever you're going through. Sometimes at the end of this, you will get to meet people, and the right people at the right time of your life. It's not always. There's no book, is there, that's waiting to say, right, you'll meet this person, this person, this person at this time of your life, and you'll go through this, and this at this time of your life. It's sometimes life can throw you curveballs.
It can, indeed.
So with as much as you're comfortable talking about, so before you had this accident, were you pretty in a good place?
Yeah, to some extent. I think, I mean, just like anyone really, just working all the time, young family. I think it's 2020 that I separated from the mother of my children, and I mean, it's especially at the start, I think we were kind of actually, it was working better that we'd actually separated. So it was not really kind of, I don't think anyway, down to any sort of ill feeling in my personal life or any kind of massive dramas, that I ended up having what was, without a doubt, a full-on mental breakdown. But I think perhaps because I was so busy all the time, it maybe didn't give me a chance to really address a lot of my own kind of issues and stuff that, we're always just, especially in this industry, it's a very macho industry. We don't tend to really discuss a lot of stuff, even with the people who are closest to us. And I don't think that I ever really discussed anything to any real depth with any of my ex-partners or anyone really, until it became a point where it was almost, I was so full that I was overspilling, so to speak, and it was kind of like, that's when it really went everywhere. But I feel like I said, being busy all the time is a great way of avoiding dealing with stuff. And after I kind of had this accident, I was forced to be at home for 3 months, and that probably gave me more time to kind of sit and stew on stuff and think about stuff than I've possibly ever had in my life before. Obviously, I really struggled at the time because of having a seizure. I couldn't drive, which obviously has a massive knock-on effect to your business. If you're in the construction industry, if you're self-employed, you're always getting out pricing work. You've got to drive from site to site. So, kind of feeling that I'd built a great thing around me. I've got some amazing people around me, and obviously I've got a duty of care to them, and that's how I felt anyway. Was these people have trusted in me to kind of to be the boss, so to speak, or whatever, and I've got responsibility to not only myself and my own family, but to their family as well. And so, I felt really almost like guilty. Another word, like you said, is I felt like I'm a bit of an imposter, because I'm suddenly in this position where I'm thinking like, how have I got here? How have I managed to blag myself into this position of power? And now suddenly the rug's whipped from under my feet, and I was worried not only for myself but for everyone else, and I kind of embarrassed as well, because I knew that they were relying on me, and I was kind of very powerless to that. And so that was very difficult, and just not being able to see any light at the end of the tunnel. Someone saying to you instantly, you can't drive for 12 months, is hard. And obviously having the physical and mental knock-on effect from having an accident like that is you start second guessing everything, you start worrying about, and I started having quite bad anxiety attacks and stuff like that, to the point where I couldn't actually even walk down to the end of the road, the physical effects of it. I tried to almost jump straight back into work afterwards, and it was just clear that neither my body or my mind was ready for that. The first job that went to Price was kind of 5 minutes walk from my house, and I remember getting there and almost being bent double, kind of having a panic attack almost. Yeah. And the lady whose house it was, is actually quite a lot older than myself, and she walks with a cane, and she was kind of like, "Are you okay? Come and sit down. Let me get you a glass of water." And at that point, I realised that, you know, like, whether or not I wanted to face it, I wouldn't be able to kind of just pretend it hadn't happened. And there was quite a long time where I was sat at home just kind of stewing on stuff, thinking about things, and it left me in a really bad place.
So you felt like you couldn't sit and allow yourself to rest and recover?
No, and perhaps that's a habit of a lifetime as well, is kind of like, you know, ignoring problems until they, maybe I'm not alone in that, maybe I am, but I feel like, in my case personally, I definitely ignored stuff, and just kind of pretended it wasn't there.
Yeah.
And at this time, I couldn't. I had to deal with it head on, and that was hard. And there's probably a lot of traumas that I hadn't dealt with from much earlier in my life. And like I said, I've never really discussed a lot of things with people. So the kind of, like I said, that opening that kind of Pandora's box and just letting everything come out all at once. Like I said, for a long time, something that makes me feel really guilty now, actually, when I have to like recount it, is, you know, for some time I was waking up every day and thinking, you know, today is the day that I'm going to own my own life. And having my own home and children now, that it makes me feel terrible now, even thinking that I was in that place, because, you know, from having the services provided to me that I have and being in a better place, I can now look back at that and think, like, what were you thinking? But when you're in that mindset, you're not thinking about anybody else. You're not thinking about the people around you, the impact it would have on your friends, your family, you know, the people you love. It's kind of, it is all about you, and I guess it's the opposite of self-preservation. When you have the instinct to have self-preservation, it's almost the opposite of that. And like I said, I've kind of got to a place where not only had I set my mind to it, but I kind of planned out exactly how I was going to do it, and it was almost like I was waking up thinking, I'll get around to it today, and then something might happen, or some friend might turn up, because obviously I was in a bad way and everyone knew that anyway, so somebody turned up and then it kind of like delay the plan, and you know, like I said, I don't use that term lightly at all, because it's definitely not something that should be joked about, but the plans that I had made, the things I put into place, had it gone through, I'm certain that there would have been no coming back from it. It wouldn't have been the case of someone being able to kind of help me or whatever. It would have been a very final event, and I am very grateful that I'm here now. And I do feel to some extent like every day is almost like a bonus day because of that, because someone could easily not have come that day with a pack of biscuits and said we're having a cup of tea and whatever else, because, you know, I wouldn't be here now, I wouldn't be sat here now, and you know, I wouldn't be trying to do what I can to then put back into the system that's effectively saved my life, which it has done. And there's a lot of good services around if you look for them. It's not always apparent, you know, if you're in this position, sometimes you don't want to search for it, sometimes you do, and you don't know what's available. So the more that can be done to kind of make people aware of what is around them is so massively important.
Thank you very much for sharing that with us.
Yeah.
At that time when you were thinking, you know, when people came to your house and you knocked on the door and said, let's have a brew or whatever, did part of you was angry, or was part of you like, oh, I'll use it as an excuse not to do it?
I wouldn't say no. I don't know. I can't even really quantify it now to myself, because it's like the person that I was then isn't even the person I am now, which is such a weird thing to say. But I think you kind of, to some extent, it's like, you know, I was embarrassed. I was embarrassed about the position that I'd felt I was in, and I was certainly embarrassed to admit that I had a problem. People were saying to me all the time, like, you're right there, because you're not really behaving like that. I'm like, yeah, I'm all right. I can't wait to get back to work, blah, blah, blah. But, you know, deep down, you know, I wasn't at all. And I was probably too embarrassed to talk to anyone, which in hindsight is a ridiculous thing, because like we said, if you have any physical illness, you go to a doctor, and unfortunately, especially in this country, we seem to think that if you're in a bad place mentally, you can't reach out for help because of fear of being sort of exposed or people thinking you are a certain way or whatever. And I guess I felt embarrassed to A, be in that situation, and B, it was kind of like, it was like a secret thing which I couldn't tell anyone about, because if I told someone, they'd intervene, and then it was kind of like, I wouldn't say I was angry at people, but it was like, it's a very weird place to be in when you're in that kind of limbo, because nothing really has any relevance to you anymore. That's the thing, is most of the time throughout your life, certain things are done to protect your safety, to protect, your ultimate thing is, the ultimate threat to someone is, I'm going to kill you. Do you know what I mean? That's the ultimate thing you can do to threaten someone. When you're at peace with actually dying, when you think, you know what, I'm going to kill myself today, there's very little which really has any impact in any aspect, because what have I got left to fear?
Yeah.
Right? And I remember when I kind of just come through the other side of all of this, it was the kind of time that they were rolling out all the COVID jabs, and people were saying, I don't want to get this COVID jab because it might have this in it might have a radio chip in it might have all of this and that and blah blah blah. And I was the first one to go, look, I took my kids away to Tenerife for a week, all inclusive, and I was like, look, 3 months ago I was sat in my living room thinking I'm going to top myself. So realistically, I don't care what is in this, like, to some extent. And I'm not saying that that's a good attitude to have at all, but when you're in the place where you have nothing left to fear, then there's very little which bothers you in any aspect of your life. So someone kind of doing something trivial or saying something or whatever that is, probably you're not really going to care about that, to be honest with you, because you don't care about anything anymore. So
it's made you appreciate life. It's made you appreciate the things you have around you.
100%. I think a good thing to come out of this is just trying to learn to appreciate all the small things more. Perhaps see the magic in all the small things, is one expression that I've used before, and that can be just like so trivial. Like this morning, instead of rushing out and doing a chore that I was supposed to be doing, I sat down with my kids and we had a bit of a slow start to the day and had breakfast together and listened to a bit of music and just kind of messed around a little bit. And I think that has really made my day, just that kind of hour of messing around and laughing and doing air guitar in the kitchen this morning. And perhaps I wouldn't have even noticed stuff like that before, but I think now I do really appreciate it, and that's one of the positives to have come out of all of this.
Yeah,
so,
definitely, well done. There's definitely a lot to be taken out of things that happen to us in our lives and how we choose to deal with those situations, because I think for a long time people can get stuck in the negative way of looking at things. Well, this is not right and that's not right and this is leading to this and that's leading to this. But then at the same time, if you do flip your outlook on life, which has happened to you, and you lead with the positive, like, yeah, no, that's happened, but look at all these other good things that I've got going on, and this is and examples of this morning, perfect example that it is those little things in life. You don't have to go off and have big flash holidays and big cars and all that and take them out to all the best theme parks and everything. Like, it can be quite simply sat watching a cartoon together.
And you know what, it's a cliche, but people always say about Christmas, like the kid plays more with the box than they do with the toy.
Yeah.
And I think having kids and having a family life is quite like that to some extent. It's often you can take them to those fancy places and they spend the whole time arguing and none of you have a good time. You come back resenting yourself, and sometimes you can go down the park, you can ride bikes together and just mess about. And kids don't care about the money, the value of the money. That's the value in their life is what you're doing. So I do notice that now a lot more, and I'm grateful for having that outlook, because that's something that I think through no fault of my own, I think I was very tunnel vision before in terms of my work approach. You know, not putting as much as I should have done into my home life. And now I think, although it is difficult, the balance you've got to at least try and make that balance work.
Yeah, it doesn't. I think for a long time I felt like it was a chore to try and find that time. I'd always find time to squeeze another job in.
Yeah,
but
you do, don't you?
I always find it difficult, or I did used to find it difficult to squeeze that extra time in, that, or take that 10 minutes before I walked out the door, or whatever, because you're too focused, too far in the future. I don't know about you, I used to live in the future all the time. I used to be really, really bad for thinking, I've got this to do, that to do, that to do, I need to make sure I'm prepared for all that, instead of stopping, looking around at everything that's going on in my life today and appreciating that time now.
I think to some extent, everyone does that. Everyone's guilty of that to some extent. I think, you know, the way that society is, we do with that. We think, you know, we've got to get a nice car, we've got to get a nice house, we've got to do this, and you're kind of conditioned to think, once I get to this goal, once I get there, then I'll be happy. I'll work really hard now, but then once I get there, I'll be happy. It's like destination.
Yeah.
Once I get to that destination, I'll be happy. And you set these goals in your mind. But the reality is, you know, you can get to that goal, you can get to the next one, you can get to the one after that. None of those make you happy. That's the thing. The happiness, like you said, comes from the small things, like your children. And just enjoying that journey, I think, is the biggest lesson that you can try and give to the next person.
Yeah, definitely. I think people can focus too much on the goal, whatever that goal is, and not appreciate the journey to get to that goal. And it may change along the way. Your outlook on things might change, and you have to go with the flow, I think, a lot of the time.
You do. But yeah, I'm grateful that I am where I am, and I'm grateful that I'm here. Thank you for having me.
No.
But yeah, on a serious note, it's I think once you've gone through a certain thing, whatever thing that might be, you know, that you can either kind of just pretend it never happened and crack on with your life, or like a lot of people that I've spoken to, the tendency is to kind of try and help the next person up, I think. And I think it's great that there are so many people like yourself who are trying to do that bit for the next person, because I know of people who need help, but they don't want to seek it because they still feel like they're too embarrassed to do it. And I know some people who want help and they're just about to get it, and perhaps if some of these things hadn't happened, they wouldn't have reached out. So, you know, whatever can be done to kind of, because ultimately you are saving that next person's life in one way or another, whether that be, even if it's not in a physical way, even if they're not at risk of hurting themselves or someone around them, you could be saving them from a life of misery simply by changing their outlook on something.
Definitely, and people are still scared to reach out now and talk because of they're scared to be stigmatised, they're scared to have the piss taken out of them, they're scared what other people think of them, embarrassed and shamed, exactly like what you were saying. And in reality, once you do reach out to especially to the likes of mine that you reached out to, the local one, and the lighthouse that I do work for, Bander Builders, and all these sort of people that are doing phenomenal work to help people, life becomes a little bit easier. It's that very first step is the hardest and may feel like the highest to get over, but when you do.
Yeah, and I think perhaps sometimes people can hear phrases like that and they think, oh, you know, I've heard that before, or whatever else. That's easy for you to say, oh, I'm different, blah, blah, blah. But it's, the way that I describe it is, when you're not talking, if you, like me, you've never spoken to anyone, you've just been this kind of, you know, on hard kind of, oh, you know, I don't need the help, blah, 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 whatever. It's like you get to this point where you're almost overflowing, and once you allow that to go, it's like opening a floodgate. It's like, it's an instant release of pressure, and you will, you know, be able to not only feel much better, but then when you recognise behaviours in yourself, so that perhaps the next time something happens which is, you know, troubled you, upset you, put you in a bad place, you're able to deal with that a lot more effectively because you've got the tools there to do that. And so it's almost that thing of, give a man a fish he eats for a day, teach him on to fish and he can eat for a lifetime. It's that kind of thing of self-care and being able to look after yourself going forward, which, I mean, who doesn't want to look after themselves? Do you know what I mean? You are the most important thing in your own life. Yeah. You're the star of your own story. You need to look after yourself, don't you?
This is it. Like, people rely so much on say, like you, for instance, with the business side of it and your personal side of it. If you're not 100% of your game, you're not 100% for them. And that's when mistakes start happening and things. And leading up to the accident, do you feel like your mental health may have played a part in the accident?
I think maybe my sheer bloody mindedness did, because I think that, even to this day, I had a medical explanation for what happened.
Yeah.
So, personally, I think it was just a case of kind of overload, burning the candle at both ends, trying to, do too much at the same time. And, people always say to you, like, you need to slow down a bit, you need to, and you go, yeah, I will, but, realistically, I can't, because I've got this job to finish, I've got this job, I've got to do this and this and this. But then, in reality, like, if you were to die that day, if my accident had happened 10 minutes earlier, I was on the top of the three-tier scaffold, and if I'd been at the top, I wouldn't be here now anyway. That decision would have been taken away from me. So, had I have been, they would have found someone else to finish the job. Exactly. Realistically, they would. And I can't blame them, because they would have had the scaffolding up, and even my team would have had to pick up the pieces and finish it without me, or they would have had to find somebody else to do that. And what I'm trying to say is that, like, we put ourselves under these under stress and under all this pressure, but realistically, the people that you're risking your mental health for, your well-being for, your physical health for, they're just customers. They'll find someone else if you're not up to it. So don't be stupid and give up more than what you're willing to give up.
Definitely, it's learning boundaries, saying no, but you can say it in a positive way. You don't have to slam the door in the face. No, you can say, absolutely, I can do that for you, but I just don't have the capacity at the minute. Can we fit it in around this date? And especially with the self-employed mentality, you think, well, I need to make hay while the sun shines, and I'll do it. I'll have the winter off, or I'll do this and do. And that time never comes, because you're constantly pushing yourself.
It never comes, and I think basically by this point I would have been 8 years into running my own business, just over 8 years, something like that. And like you said, I think you never make that time. You never can. And that's the thing, unless you make yourself make time. That's the thing. Yeah. So it's hard, and we say these things now, but I know it's not easy. I know from experience it's not easy. But what you have to think of is, like you said, is you can always squeeze in that extra job in the evening, on the Saturday, on the Sunday, whenever it is you're doing these foreigners at the weekend or whatever. It's easy to do it, but there's not always that time. You can't get the time back with your family. You can't make that time back for yourself. So
this is what I say all the time. It doesn't matter how much money you earn, you can never buy time.
This is it. It's very true.
You can earn all the money you want in the world, but
and you know what? Money. People say money doesn't make you happy. I've worked with some people who are disgustingly rich, and they're no happier than I am, or people that have got less money than myself. It's money is not a tool to quantify happiness. The thing is, people get locked in this mentality of money being the end goal, but the reason that is because basically all that money is freedom. That's what it represents. Is that if you had all the money in the world, you could go and sit on a yacht in Barbados. And so money is just a tool. The ultimate goal is freedom, isn't it?
Definitely. I think it's learning to be content as well, because I think if you're happy all the time, you wouldn't appreciate being happy. It just become a numb emotion. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, you're right.
You can imagine. So, what's your favourite meal that you like to eat?
Let's say pizza.
Pizza.
Yeah.
You can imagine eating pizza every single day for the rest of your life.
Imagine that.
Yeah.
No, I'm not that bad. No, you're right, and I think it does take sometimes. It takes terrible things to happen before you can really see the great in everything, the good in everything, the great in the small things. So for that I am grateful, and I believe that for whatever purpose, whatever you want to call it, you know, things do happen to put you in a certain place. And the only, you know, consolation I can take out of what's happened to me and what I've come through on my journey to get to where I am right now is that hopefully in sharing that with other people, they might, you know, pick up a phone or a tablet or whatever it is to just think, you know what, he's not dissimilar to me. He's nothing special. If he can do it, I can do it. Do you know what I mean?
Absolutely, yeah.
And, you know, hopefully that's the message that comes across.
So moving forward now, do you have different routines, different way of doing things, prioritise things differently?
Yeah, I think I was guilty of a lot of different things at the same time. So I was guilty of working way too hard, trying to fit everything in, trying to wear every hat in my business, which I appreciate a lot of people do when they're self-employed. But, you know, releasing a bit of that, trying to share a bit of a problem, halved is a problem, shared is a problem, whatever it is, that expression is true. It's definitely true. I mean, I've brought in more people to help with the admin side of stuff, and yeah, that's cost money, but if it's helping me, then it's helping me. And obviously not just like random things like that, it doesn't have to be big gestures, but I personally, at the time when my accident happened, not only was I working too hard, you wouldn't believe it, but I was going to the gym every day at the time, haven't trained since my accident, just through like kind of almost like a PTSD from it, because I know that I was pushing it too hard, and so it has made me a bit reluctant to get back into the training and stuff. But I was pushing it with my physical health and also trying to fit in as much, going out to the pub, socialising with friends, so, you know, getting up early, going to work, you know, finishing work, going to the gym, then going for drinks afterwards, or whatever combination that was. And it just pushed to the point where my body just effectively just said, we can't do this anymore, do you know what I mean? So I do notice that personally, for me anyway, one of my, people say triggers, I think that word is slightly overused, but one of the you know, defining factors in how I feel and how I process stuff is definitely around alcohol. And I've spoken to a lot of people who are the same, and so I've definitely noticed through trying to cut right back on my drinking, I actually feel a lot happier, which is funny because you usually drink because it's a good laugh and you want to do this, but like anything, it does, like eating pizza every day gets to the point where it's kind of like it's not as fun anymore. When it's not as fun, that's when you need to stop doing it. So, for me, I mean, this year I've probably, up until my birthday, which was a couple of weeks ago, I could probably count the amount of alcoholic drinks I've had on one hand because I've just not been interested in it. I've not wanted to get myself back into that routine. So any little adjustments that can be made, I think personally, can have a massive impact overall, and being able to make that adjustments allowed me to continue to work and to, you know, do my home life and everything around it, because, you know, like, we get so tunnel vision about our work, but the whole reason we work is to have a nice life outside of work, and it's easy to forget that.
It really definitely is, it really is, and you're now having, or you feel like you're having a more rounded life than...
Trying to. Yeah. Certainly since I've stopped going to the gym, I feel more rounded.
You're doing your best on that front. But do you find that you for a long time you found it hard to allow yourself to stop?
Yeah, and I don't think... I've got friends who are in other industries that, you know, are self-employed, or their main asset is themselves. And I think it is quite common that you don't stop. It's kind of like, you know, let's make hay while the sun shines. Let's just hammer it while we can. But like you said, unless you make the time never comes. So. And
now you're making that time. You're noticing that you're becoming more productive. Like you said,
well, I'm trying to. Yeah. That's it. I mean, another really small adjustment that I've made is trying to make stuff as digital as possible. So I was very, very analogue in my approach to everything before. And up until very recently, you know, going price a job, had the same pad I'd have, like a Lucky Charm. I'd always had the same pad since I started my own business, like a leather pad, and you open it up and there's kind of like the A4 paper there. And then, so I'd, you know, go around and I'd write it all up, and then I'd go home. Then I've got to type it up into into a quote on a quote, send that over an email. obviously when you get home sometimes you haven't got it in you, so then you forget to do it, or you don't want to do it that evening, and that means that the following day you're behind, and then you've got something else is happening, and so you can kind of quite easily fall into this pattern of, you start annoying your customers as well, because they're like, you come around like 3-4 days ago, we haven't heard, is everything alright kind of thing, or whatever. A small adjustment that I've made, which I would say if anyone can do, is I've invested in an iPad effectively, which I've got through, I actually got it through Sky, but I got quite a good deal on it, and basically that's got like a 3G, 4G or whatever, 5G SIM card in it, so I can walk around the job. It's slightly more long-winded, it's got a keyboard attached to it, but when I'm there it's fresh in my mind, I walk around, look at everything, put exactly what I've got, all my quantities, and usually people are pretty good at kind of just standing there and just, like understanding that you're doing what you're doing. And then straight away through the software that I use, it gets sent there and then on the spot. Yeah. And then people say, when will I hear from you? And I say, it's already in your inbox. And they're, that's good, isn't it? And not only are they impressed by that, but the way I look at it is, it's costing me 50 quid a month, right? Yeah. But for that money, I'm buying back my life, I'm buying back my evenings. Yeah. My evenings I could be doing something better. I don't want to spend my whole life working. Yeah. So for that £50, sometimes it's like you do have to make these sacrifices, but for me that 50 quid is a 50 quid well spent. So this is it, it's those small little things in life that make it better for you. And sometimes, when you change your routine, did you find yourself slipping back into your old one? You're like getting angry with yourself? Yeah, I think you can do that. But that's also a good thing to come from the kind of the self-care approach, is that if you know that if you're aware of stuff, that's half the battle. Because then you can make the adjustments. Perhaps if you don't ever take the time to kind of reflect on stuff, then that's when it's maybe perhaps the most dangerous, because you don't even know you've got a problem, let alone know how to solve it. So once you've got that initial foundation in place, it's easier to make the adjustments to keep yourself in line, keep yourself accountable, I think. Definitely. And if you could give somebody like a golden nugget of advice, or something that clicked in your head, I think that actually makes sense to me and now I see why, what would that be? It's funny because a few people have asked me this before, and obviously I'm quite open about the fact that had it not been for going down the route of going through counselling and stuff like that, then I'm very open about the fact that I don't believe I would be sat here right now, and it's very hard to compress all these maybe hundreds of hours of talking to someone into a sentence or a paragraph or whatever. But I'd say if I was asked to do that, the most valuable nugget of advice that I would give is recognise that there are things you have control over, there are things you have some control over, and there's things that you have no control over. And often what we do is we beat ourselves up, we put ourselves under pressure about the things that we have absolutely no control over. And doing that, you're harming yourself, because no one else is putting you under that pressure. You're putting yourself under that pressure. The main thing you need to do is focus on the things that you can control and do them to your best ability, shall we say. Don't beat yourself up about the things you have no control over. That is the best bit of advice I would say that I took from my counsellor. Definitely, I think that is a really valuable bit of advice for somebody. But do we think that the paint's dried? There's one way to find out. Let's give it a go. But, go on then. Mate, thank you very much for coming on and talking and sharing your story with everybody. And I really appreciate all the support, and you driving up to, it's actually sunnier up here than it is down south today. That's the only reason I came up. But no, I do really appreciate it. But again, thank you to everybody for watching this episode. I know it's a bit echoey, and I know we're not in the perfect conditions, but hey, this is all part of it. We're not perfect, nobody's perfect. And let us know if you want us to talk about anything in the next episode. If you let us know in the comments below, or if there's something that we spoke about in this episode that's really struck a chord with us, let us know. And if you want any more information, but I'll put all James's links to his social media so you can see what he gets up to on a daily basis on there. But other than that, thank you very much, and I'll see you in the next one. I'll speak to you soon. Well done, mate. Perfect. That was absolutely perfect, that, mate. Honestly, that was so good. I'm not as
38 minutes.